Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Garden Gossip Show. We love gossip, and that's what we're going to do today. We have a special guest joining us, Kris Kiser. He's the president of the Turf-Mutt-Foundation. Now, come on, that's a cool name. But they do really amazing things in regards to education, especially with the youth. They're into dogs like Nancy and I. You know, we travel the country, documenting parks and public lands and looking at botanical gardens and gardens, but also pet sitting. So we love dogs, and we love, taking them for walks and playing in the garden. And I know he does too. So today he's going to talk about how to create the perfect outdoor living and workroom. So many of us are working from home these days. So you might as well really utilize your backyard space. So anyway, go to their website, turfmutt.com, and that's mutt with 2 T's, turfmutt.com. So welcome, Kris. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good to be with you today.
Hey, this is exciting because you got green space and you got pups. Okay, so everybody loves this. But tell us a little bit about, before we get into talking about how we can work outside and still have a good time. And who doesn't want to do meetings outside? That's like that's the way to go. But talk about Lucky and Mulligan. There's 2 dogs on your website that we want to hear about and how this all started.
Well, I run a trade association called the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute. We represent manufacturers of equipment that help you maintain the outdoors. We also own the 6th largest trade show in the United States, soon to be named Equip for 2022. It's very large. We have 22 acres outdoors where you can experience equipment. But what our industry decided we wanted to do was better educate kids in particular and have them educate their parents. Oftentimes that's the way to have it happen. It's called backpack programming. Is to connect to the outdoors. And this was before COVID, about a decade ago. We wanted to help kids better understand the outdoors and that we're all interconnected. Nature starts at your back door. You don't have to go somewhere to find nature. It's all around us and we're all interconnected. And we used to be, the yard and our green spaces oftentimes were just viewed as aesthetic or pretty. We want you to know they're purposeful and that you have a role to play. Key to that is understanding where you live, right plant, right place, know your climate zone. And so we wanted to make kids understand in climate change, how can you sequester carbon? How can you help with dust and particulate matter and dissipate heat, the heat island effect for those of us in the cities? And so we created Turf-Mutt. And so when we got talking about it, how can we educate kids? How can we be in this space? And I literally learned it from watching my own dog in the yard. So we were city people. I moved out and I got a yard for him in Alexandria, Virginia. And no one knew my yard. No one knows your yard like your dog. So they know where the possum's been and the squirrels are and where the fox has been. And so we took it from his point of view, and a communicator said, would he wear a cape? And we tied a tablecloth on him and he's a ham and he loved it. And there Turf-Mutt was born. So Turf-Mutt's the cartoon character, a superhero. And there are some bad guys, carbon creep, Dr. Runoff, heat freak, dust demons. And that helped kids understand the connection to the outdoors. And we wanted to empower them. And in particular, say pollinators. We've got to help pollinators today. Bees, hummingbirds, bats, and that's flowering plants. And so all that means is to plant a flowering plant. And so that's how it's gotten started. In 11 years, we've now reached 70 million kids.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. And, the pollinator part is such an important issue. And for kids, when they get involved with their garden, they get to watch wildlife. We've done a lot of shows with David Mizejewski. He's the spokesperson for the National Wildlife Federation's backyard gardening, creating your own backyard habitat. And even as we travel, we're seeing pollinator gardens even pop up at rest areas. And I think this is fantastic because it absolutely gets people excited into, we could do this at home, so those places are really important, those demonstration gardens, but getting the kids involved gets the parents, like you're saying. It really does get them, let's go and, let's
and that's the point. You can do it at home. So Turf-Mutt grew. We've been on television. We did 4 seasons of Lucky Dog. We did Ready, Set, Pet. And part of the program, we oftentimes had contests with schools, and we'd give them an outdoor classroom if you won. So we were recently in Clearwater, Florida, gave that school an outdoor classroom. We literally built it. Oftentimes took the dog with us to these places. Again, that helps the kids understand it. And literally why you'll get the plant delivery. And so you get a lot of flowering plants delivered. The kids, we teach them how to plant a plant, right? And how to get it established. And literally why the plants are sitting there before they can get them in the ground, the butterflies and the bees show up. And so there's a lesson plan right there. It doesn't take much. In the TV show we did on the CW, a lot of it was New York City and its surrounds. And you don't have to have a yard necessarily. You can do it on a patio, a balcony, a roof deck. You can do it on a windowsill. So we planted a butterfly bush on a windowsill, and lo and behold, I mean, they bloom throughout the summer, and immediately you get butterflies, and that's pollinator support. I live here in the Atlantic Flyway, so I get a lot of migratory birds and insects a couple times a year. And if you'll plant what they need, and that's easy Google search, right? Where are you? What's flying overhead? They just look down and they see green or not green. And if you have the right food when they want to rest and recharge, they'll hang out. So the spring, when my towhees arrive, I know spring is just around the corner and I have what they want, so they'll stay. And so those are all the kinds of lesson plans. Remember, our lawns, our yards are the largest carbon sink in the country. So if you're interested in climate change and how to sequester carbon, it starts at home.
Something really important we've been following is American Forests talking about tree equity. And talking about a lot of areas, if they're low income, or even it has to go right to race. If you're in a Black neighborhood, a lot of times they don't have the trees that they need. And so they went and did this. It's incredible what they've done, called a tree equity score. You can look in and see what is your tree equity. And they're saying that if we plant the trees needed to create the tree canopy, again, like the island effect, and getting kids involved, right? And schools and everybody involved, that we can actually increase our jobs by 3.8 million, which is incredible. So what you're talking about too, it's this, we need to plant, and stop tearing everything up. There's, we used to live in the Southwest, and when we used to live in one place, and there's this whole thing where people started using gravel as mulch, and we learned from gardening, if you use ground cover and things like that, you'd create this clean environment that cooled down your yard, brought in the pollinators. You see flowers, and you had shade trees, but if you put in this gravel, you didn't have the heat just rose.
It was 15 degrees hotter when you put the gravel down, and you're in the desert, and you're doing it so you don't have to pull weeds. So we put gravel down in one place just to see what would happen. Not only did the heat rise, it pretty much killed the soil.
Sure. And if you do plant a plant in that gravel, you'll bake it. So we saw when California's last very significant drought, we created something called the West Coast Mission at Turf-Mutt to go into schools out there, because what they said is, look, there's a terrific water shortage, and we're very mindful of that. And one of the Turf-Mutt's key messages is water quality, water availability, and how to save water. But what they did was they said, oh gosh, outdoor landscapes or outdoor plants take in water, or they use water, so we got to get rid of it. And what they did, they incentivized that. People tore up established landscapes, and they actually incentivized putting down plastic grass. Well, it turns it into the surface of Venus. It gets freakishly hot. You have to water it to clean it. It exacerbates the problem. So that's the key, is even in drought, trust nature. So if you have the right plant for the right region and it's established, the plant may go dormant and grass may turn brown. And there are tough grasses for desert areas, buffalo. It's okay to be brown, and it'll spring right back when the rains come, as they inevitably do. But California had a huge tree die-off, and they had all kinds of suddenly dust and particulate matter, heat island effect problems, as you described, because people were putting down gravel and other hard surfaces and exacerbating the problem. Well, why are the trees dying? Well, you have to have something to hold water or stop runoff, hold it in place. Trees drink real slowly, as do big shrubs. And so you've got to hold the water in place when the rains come, when they do. And if you don't, you get this mudslides and water problems. And so that's, again, what we want to educate. Drought is a natural phenomenon. It's very, very challenging. It's aggravated now, but oftentimes an established landscape can help with that.
And having the right plants and, natives. And from what I've learned too, through Ian Leahy from, now I've pronounced his name wrong. I know he's going to email me, from American Forest. He's the vice president of urban forestry. He's saying now that it's not just natives, because natives have changed because of adaptability, because climate has changed. So it's like you're saying, it's about getting the right plant So it's sub-native almost.
It is. We have to be mindful of what we've created. And so oftentimes we'll have folks that tell us, oh, no, you need to put native plants. What was there? What was a native there? Well, if you've been to Houston or Baltimore, it's no longer a native environment. And oftentimes the native that might have survived there 200 years ago won't now.
Yeah.
So plants surrounding a Walmart parking lot may not survive if it's the native it once was. And so you have to find a varietal that will survive, that's appropriate for the region, right? And that serves a purpose. So lots and lots of plants are purposeful. We really learned that in COVID as people began to tailor their outdoor spaces for exercise and office and work and recreation. Is you can tailor your space. It's not a one size fits all. The key is to know what it is you want to do, plan for it, and plant appropriately. That's the one key message behind us. Most of Turf-Mutt is know your zone, plant what's appropriate. What we did see, and you see it in the desert that you've described, a lot of folks may retire to the Arizona desert or Palm Springs, and they're coming from New Jersey and they have lush Kentucky bluegrass lawns and they want to replicate that. Well, the desert environment is not good for a lush Kentucky bluegrass lawn.
That's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water. And so we certainly don't recommend that. What we want you to find that are plants that are appropriate. And there's likely a ground cover species that's desert friendly that'll hold your ground and your topsoil in place. And like you described, one of the great things about a dog, so if you have it's a hot day, what surface are they going to be on? They're not going to be on the sidewalk or the asphalt of the driveway. They're going to be on a little patch of green. As you described, it's a whole lot cooler. And that's what we're trying to do. And that helps dissipate the heat island effect.
And here, and this is something by neighborhood, is to not have dead zones. So like if you're the only, green space in the neighborhood, you're going to get all the birds, but they need another place to land on their way to their next destination.
Yes.
So we want to create, like we talk about harmful algae blooms in the ocean, right? From oil spills and all kinds of things.
Yep.
Well, we are doing that by not planting. We are creating these dead zones where there's no life, and it's not cool. Walking your dog, from what I've learned, is even if it's 70 degrees outside, it's already going to hurt their paws. And if even your front yard, we need front yards because, the mutt wants to go pee-pee and sniffies. If they don't have their morning sniff, they're not a happy dog. No, so they want that. But if we had green planted out on the front, and just even if you don't have a dog, be mindful of the dogs, and the cats and the birds. They want that green area so they're not always walking on pavement,
Absolutely. And that's a fundamental of Turf-Mutt. There's a reason there are lawns and green spaces in place between a walk and the curb, if you will. It's to slow and to stop water. It's to capture rain, that runoff, hold it in place, filter it. I mean, our landscapes and our plants will clean water as it percolates down into the soil, but you've got to stop it. You've got to slow it down as it moves towards. So you don't want it just washing away in the storm system. And that's key. And your plants can do that. And you're so right about your dog. It provides them. And it's, again, plan for that. Do you have kids? Do you have dogs? Do you want to create a space for them? And tailor it, whether it's a water feature or a path. And you can use plants for privacy. You can use plants for protection. There's all kinds of things we can do. And it's a quick, easy search. I'm looking for privacy. I'm looking for shade. I'm looking to create this kind of space or that kind of space. And I'll tell you, there's a plant for you.
And all of this really improves your property value. It's an investment that pays off.
And younger people, especially the people buying houses today, it's not just curb appeal. Now it's nature appeal, environment appeal. Is what is that lawn or landscape doing for nature? They want to know that it's working. And it can do all of those things. It's a safe space. We always describe our homes and our hardscapes. It's an extension of home, right? It's the place for our kids and our dogs to play. And now, due to COVID, it's a place where we can meet. It's an outdoor classroom, our family gatherings, exercise room, the staycation. So fire pits, tents, the propane heaters. I have an outdoor office now. I do a lot of work. It's a busy day today. Had a little rain and some machines out there working. So I'm inside talking to you, but I do a lot of work from there. And the other thing is, we all know, a pediatrician will tell you, the best thing you can do for a young child, get them dirty, get them a dog, put them in the yard, expose them to those allergens. In Asian countries, it's called forest washing, right?
Yeah.
Our landscapes help us reduce anxiety and dissipate stress. I sit out there, and if I'm quiet, if Mutt Mulligan is inside, the foxes already know where she is. They'll come and lay real close. They're very city adapted now, and the foxes are quite curious. So I'll put nuts out on my desk, an outdoor table, and the birds will show up. And then the foxes will lay. And I got a coyote who likes to lay in my driveway. He likes to sun himself.
That's so cool.
That's cool.
That is it to me, that especially for kids to have that wonderment. It's like, oh, a baby bluebird or a bluebird is having babies, they're nesting and they're laying their eggs, and to watch what's happening, to watch the cycle of a butterfly, at night. Oh, look, the raccoons are eating the figs. It's so exciting. And I think it's for all ages. And it's something that takes I know we take our laptops outside or phones, but it really does do something beautiful to put that aside at times and have that reflective time, that family time, have a grill going. I'm excited about it because I think that the backyard industry kind of had a shaky moment about 7-10 years ago. Something kind of shifted, and it was important. I mean, we watch it. We've done so many shows. We've been to garden expos, and it's actually our trip to the to Southern Florida from Tucson. We went to the Tropical Plant Expo. We were there as a guest with Costa Farms, remember? And we did our show from there. And then we did another one up in Pacific Northwest in Oregon. And we got into the Everglades, and it was driving there that inspired us to get on the road and talk about public spaces. And we thought just national parks, but then we realized by starting our tour that every single inch matters, whether it's your home or out. And I think now these community parks that we have, we're seeing more and more of them in schools, going in and doing gardens with the kids. And I think it's important because it's gets people to understand what they can grow. There's more and more demonstration gardens coming up that I've been seeing as we travel.
And it's not hard now, unless you're planting, a 2,000-pound bush or tree. But the nice thing about kids in particular, you can hand them a little flower or a little plant, and they can plant it, and they literally can watch it grow and understand the cycle. And an awful lot of flowering plants, you can buy them flowering, but they'll flower and flower and flower. My Rose of Sharon will flower all summer. My Camilla will flower all winter. And that's the other thing we do here. Now, we have a bit of a showcase. So we've done a number of television things and radio things here at the house to showcase what you can do. So whether it's azaleas or rhododendron or the Rose of Sharon, but I'll have trees that flower, the magnolias, and they flower throughout the year. And that's the key, is you keep flowering plants available for your hummingbirds and your insects throughout the year, and it'll feed them throughout the year. And so whether my hollies will berry. And again, those are the things we encourage kids to learn about and help educate their parents. So when they go to the garden store, they can work with their parents. Okay, we live in Arizona, and you've described your travels. You've seen the radical difference between the Everglades and Seattle and the desert. And that's the point. It's a big country. The key is to know your zone and plant appropriately. But we've also seen during COVID in particular, when COVID first hit, the Turf-Mutt lesson plans, which are available online, both Scholastic and the United States Green Building Council, the Global Learning Lab, created stay-at-home programming for all these parents that suddenly found themselves educators.
Yeah.
How can I work with my kids? How can I get them out of the house? And so, and a couple of times during the year, these were some of the most used lesson plans in the country because it was so easy. Go to the garden center. Remember, it was outdoors. Find some plants, find the appropriate plants, and then plant them with your child. And then you'll see them grow and evolve. And you understand the cycle. Then you'll see, like you described, the birds coming in, nesting, etc. We did so much flowering plants here. I actually put a fence in, not to keep the dogs in because they're pretty well trained, keep the deer out. Because nature will find you. I mean, I love my hydrangeas, but they were cupcakes for the deer.
They smile when they eat flowers. They literally smile.
They really do smile.
Yes. They do.
Well, I've learned what to put outside the fence and what to put inside the fence. And there are flowering plants, obviously, that are deer resistant. And those are key here. I mean, I'm very lucky, although we're just across the river from Washington, D.C., and it's an urban area. It's amazing how much nature, how much wildlife adapts to us and can live alongside of us. Our foxes, and like I said, I have a coyote, the deer.
That's
and
awesome.
so let's work with them. Let's not fight that.
Coexist. We have to coexist.
It's so much more fun. You know, I love it when wildlife comes into a garden. You sit and watch it, and they get confident around you. They come a little closer. You don't have to try and pet them or do something silly, but you learn so much. And for children, oh my gosh, it's such an opening of a whole other world.
But this is an important topic because there's also a fear of wildlife. So people get scared. And I think sometimes people don't plant because of fear. And snakes and garden snakes are so important to everything. You know, nature's cycle, understanding the web of life. I mean, birds will take care of the spiders. You don't need to, you know, kill every spider because you're scared of a spider.
Are good for you.
But, you know, people get scared of raccoons and possums. Possums are pretty trippy, man. They're cool to watch. But it is about once you start taking that step and appreciating, there's this, it is just so cool to be in their presence. And there is a respect on both sides. I mean, they're scared of us too. But once they know you're safe, they'll come back. The birds will come back, and you will be able to see that cycle happen. And it's so cool for kids to understand. It's better than a video game, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. Knowledge is key. Like you've just described, you need to be mindful about these animals. You need to know what risk, if any, there may be, but you can coexist. That's the key. Let's coexist alongside. And like you said, there are tough lessons to be learned. I put out a bunch of bird feeders. I'm a bit of a birder now because I get so many birds passing through here. But if you put out bird feeders and attract a lot of birds, you're going to attract other birds that feed on the birds. So I get a lot of raptors. So I now have, you know, several hawks. I've got a peregrine falcon. I got an owl family. Oh, wow. But it's wonderful because, you know, they work on the mice and the voles. But it could be it's extraordinary how much wildlife and insect life is here and available. We just have to learn what it is they need. And we'd like to say, pair it with what you need, because you can design your home for yourself. So you can use it for your kids and your family and your dogs, what have you. Or if you're a gardener or you like a Zen garden, plant appropriately. But at the same time, bear them in mind. We keep saying over and over, nature starts at your back door. You don't have to drive to go find it. You don't have to go down to the park or drive out to the state park. It's literally at your back door. And so you can do your part wherever you are.
Exactly. And also understanding, like you were saying, getting rid of that fear is from education. One thing we learned, we were in Asbury Woods up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I was talking with the lady. They're all about education. They have roof gardens, and it's like, cool, man, I want to do a roof garden. Who doesn't want a roof garden, right? It's like, that's cool. And you could do it tree houses. I mean, it's like getting back into the little kid of yourselves, you know. She was talking about all the school groups they have. And so I was saying, yeah, this is so cool, not using the phone. She says, no, we have to coexist, right? We're talking about plants and nature. So she got me totally hooked. And I'm nuts about this, is iNaturalist has an app called Seek on your phone. And you can photograph things. And now
the plants,
the bugs. And so now it's dangerous, but it becomes part of, you're doing citizen science. And so it's part of research. You get all these weird fungus things and you post it up and it goes on a map and people go in and say, no, it's this kind of fungus. No, it's this worm. No, it's that kind of tree frog. And so for kids, I think it's so cool. And then some of, you know, biologists are using this to know about how the species are doing, how an area is doing in biodiversity. And so to me, that's part of getting rid of the fear is now it's kind of like a treasure hunt.
Well, in nature, they're here for a purpose. A spider does a purpose. A snake is a purpose. Each of these animals have a purpose in the ecosystem. My dog, my Mulligan, who's the spokes dog of the Turf-Mutt-Foundation, she has more friends on Facebook than I do and more followers on Twitter. She's the popular one. I just drive her around. But we take videos here, and I got big butterfly bushes near windows. And the other day we took a video of a hummingbird moth.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
And we put it on and we're like, what is this? So everybody's, oh, that's a hummingbird. And we're like, no, look more closely. And lo and behold, it's a hummingbird moth. Very, very cool. I had not seen one, but I would not have seen that. They're teeny tiny and they move really quick, but they slow down obviously to eat. And I would not have seen that but for a butterfly bush that was strategically positioned where I could see it. Same thing for the hummingbirds. You put out a hummingbird feeder or put out the plants that they like to eat. They love my Rose of Sharon. They'll show up in droves. They're so very territorial with one another. It's quite a show, but you have to put out there what they need to get them to hang out at the house. And that's what we want people to do is plant what they need, plant what that will survive, frankly, if you've got kids or dogs. And your yard can be that. So if you want to create a soccer pitch or a place to play croquet or a place to play badminton, we really saw that happen during COVID. Wow, people were really beginning to convert their spaces to usable spaces.
That's awesome, though. I mean, why have it if you're not going to use it? You know? It's such an important part of how you live, a garden. I mean, when we house it and we end up in a house that has no garden, we're all kind of bummed. Where's our morning coffee in the garden?
We want the patio with our coffee or wine time. And, it's like even last night where we are today, we're in Garland, Texas. And it should be called Garden, Texas, where it does remind us of South Africa where we lived. And she's done an amazing job of a garden. And there's fountains last night. It's beautiful, starry night. We had fountains going. It was nice and cool. I mean, it's just, and you get those breezes from the flowers at night, like jasmine. And it's just, you're out there going, this is the coolest thing. And then it's like, oh, wait, was that a bat? Cool. I remember that in the desert. We'd go swimming at night because it's really nice. And the bats would dip down. And so there are all these things. We're lucky because we get to garden across the country, and there's people propagating their own plants all into succulents or all into this, and start, doing their garden, so you see all these things. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, this is cool for people, what they want to do at home. Sometimes people just go, okay, I want this. I don't have time to get my hands dirty, which is fine because you can hire people. And I was talking about, if we could achieve tree equity across this country and getting 3.8 million jobs, do you see this growth from COVID in the landscape industry? Do you see a growth happening after, with people putting more gardens in?
As challenging as it was, and an awful lot of folks suffered greatly during 2020, and it's still a challenge, but our industry had a renaissance. It was an extraordinarily strong year. And you see it today. Oftentimes there's a lot of power equipment that's hard to find. Garden centers, plants are hard to find. Hardscapes are hard to find. Outdoor propane heaters are hard to find because there's such demand. People reconnected to the outdoors in a meaningful way. A lot of our CEOs think that reconnection is real now with Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, what have you, is a better understanding of the outdoors, its criticality to our health and well-being. And it's fairly easy to do. It's not a lot of work. Part of it's understanding what you want to create. Now, you can obviously create a yard or landscape that is a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be. It can be simple and still fit your purpose. But we had a banner year. A lot of industries, landscape contractors, hardscape contractors, equipment manufacturers. It was a very, very big year as people began to reconnect and tailor those outdoor space. I put in a big outdoor patio here. I have them front and rear, so you can put people on one side of the house and it doesn't bother people on the other side of the house. Is we have all that space, we should use it. The key is, you described it, you have to take a minute. So leave the devices inside. I'm not a young person. I'm kind of old school. I get newspapers delivered to home, but I love that early morning, post dusk with my morning papers, coffee, and it's just quiet. It's before the noise begins of the day, and extraordinarily how many animals are out and busy. So if I leave the dogs inside, it's amazing what's out there and moving around and getting ready to call it. They've been out all night. They're getting ready to call it a day, but it's a wonderful time to just rest. The key is just listen, decompress, disconnect from your devices for just a few minutes. And it's amazing how much better you can feel in 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, forest bathing, like you're saying. It really has that, nature is a healer, and it's important. The other thing too is people growing their own food. This is something I feel like we talk about topsoil disappearing across our country, and the nutrition value of our food because of how we've been growing it. And there is this where people are starting to have mini farms. I know people are moving out of the city, like the real estate market has completely transformed as well.
Yes.
And they want the green spaces. On top of that, they want their kids to be able to grow vegetables, so kids aren't scared of vegetables and eating them. They're not. It's not a green giant. It's a fun one. You can eat these tomatoes. And so what I think now is we're going to see more of landscaping with flowers, and people going, okay, here's our flowers, but we can also have our fruits and our vegetables and mix it all in and so this is becoming healthy. A healthy way of life.
It is a healthy way of life. And what our industry does is try to make sure that you're able to maintain it in a meaningful way. There's lots of equipment. It doesn't matter how old you are, young you are, man, woman, old, young. There's a piece of equipment that you can work. It can be a battery, it could be electric, it could be gas. So there's a price point and a product that suits your needs. A lot of stuff's been ergonomically designed. And so my 86-year-old mother down in Sanibel, Florida, takes her a little electric leaf blower, clears her patio. She gets a lot of needles. There's something there for you. And so she's, putzes around, like you said, a bit of a gardener. And it's cool. A 19-year-old can do it, or an 89-year-old can do it.
Yeah.
And so we want to empower that.
I know how to mow lawns now. I know how to shovel snow. I like the mowing of lawns more than the shoveling of snow, but I learned how to do ice and snow. And there's tools for that, by the way. Some people have snow blowers. That's pretty darn cool. But
if you don't like shoveling snow, buy a machine, because it'll do all the work.
I know.
You just have to point it.
Well, Nancy made me toddies. She says, here, have a toddy before you go in the snow. But I don't think, machines were good. Some people had these fancy things, and I'm like, hey, I want that. That looks like fun. I learned how to lawn mow this year, and I've done leaf blowing. I've done what are those things that you go in and you get the grass out of the water? Like in Florida, we were in Tampa, Florida, and there's the ditches on the side capturing the water. I got in there with this big old thing and cut all the weed whacker. It was fun. I had a blast. And the dog watched me going, you idiots. You're going to cut your foot off. But I didn't.
Look at her.
But you know what? These tools have come a long way for safety, because people like if I can do it, absolutely anyone can. The one lady in Prescott, Arizona, she's Judith. I'll send her this. She'll love it. She's got, beautiful, she's right outside Prescott National Forest. And so we had javelina, the peccary pigs come in. They're not pigs, they're peccaries, so cool. And deer and coyotes and all of this wildlife in her garden. And it's magical. And she did what you did. She cornered off an area that's her Zen garden with flowers and herbs, like a kitchen garden with, magic. Even the little dog Polo is not allowed in there because of the lizards. So she has all of this going on. But she has this tree that just decides, I'm going to drop my needles, all over your patio. So I said to her, oh, I can sweep that up. She goes, no. She says, I've got a leaf blower. She says, but this is for girls. She brings us out. She said, this is the ladies' leaf blower. And it's true. I was like, well, this is cute. This is fun. I don't know. There's a mindfulness to it. I could become, that's what I'm saying, more jobs opening, because if we ever, quit the podcasting magazine gig, I could blow leaves forever.
Right. And nowadays we make them so lithium ion, right? So it's like cars. You can now store enough power in a little package. You can get very powerful leaf blowers that are small, don't weigh anything. Like I said, my mother still, she likes to do it herself.
It's a girly one.
There's a girly one. I shouldn't say that. But there's a product for everybody that allows you, again, the machine will do the work. And so you could get a machine like a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, walk behind mower, or the machines will do the work, and they want to empower you, and they make them easy and safe now. Obviously we make those. And so the machine helps you stay connected. Sure, you can hire a landscape contractor, but it's not hard to do it yourself.
I think it's good for us.
That helps you.
I think it's good for us to get out there. And, remember as kids, you didn't want to do your chores, but nowadays I feel like, oh, it's an escape, it's an escape.
And it'll make you, I represent them, so I have a pretty good selection of equipment. I have a big snow thrower, but it has hand warmers, headlights.
Cool.
All you got to do is point it and pull the handles, and it'll pull you around. But
when can we pet
it,
sit for you?
it makes it so easy. So if you end up doing some of your neighbors, you'll be very popular very fast.
Wow.
Because the machine will do all the work. You just have to point it.
Does it have a cup holder for our toddies?
It does.
No. See,
So,
this,
yeah.
this, and the other thing is those, I'm into this stuff because like when we were through Louisiana and Mississippi and Arkansas, right? There, I actually got chased by a guy on his lawnmower. I'm not kidding you. In Arkansas,
So funny.
we were driving, we went to this park and there was alligators and all kinds of cool stuff. And so we're driving out and it's kind of like a farmland and swampy. And there was this beautiful heron in this pond area. And Nancy's like, look, stop. So I stopped the car and I'm photographing the heron. And this guy is out on his mower, comes out on the road. He's like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And I started driving off. He chased me in the lawnmower and I hauled. What kind of lawnmower is that where you can sit in it and chase a car?
Good one.
Like seriously.
They're zero turn. They're pretty fast. But that just lets you do the work, quickly. Again, there's a machine for you.
Chasing Lisa across the country.
Yeah, I can't say that. We're not supposed to use our mowers for chasing, but there's a product for you.
You didn't know you were going to talk about that when you came on this, did you?
No, you're going to get me in trouble. I'll be in big trouble here.
No, but listen, it was fun. It was fun.
Lawnmower races.
I know.
Look, I come from a small town in southern Indiana. Lawnmower racing is a big deal.
Yes,
you soup them up and you do it safely. You wear your helmet, you disconnect the, the blade device. But no, I grew up racing little mini bikes and mowers.
Cool.
Oh my God. See, the Midwest is fun. If you got a lot of grass, because people are out there on their mowers. And Nancy and I whenever we're driving through an area and you see people on their, driving their mower, we're looking at their faces and going, they're having a good time. It's like a little boy's toy. Like, let's go for it. And you can tell they're having a ball. There's something about it.
It's not a lot of work. And so I have a house out in Indiana and it's a way, and I'm like you, I like to mow. And so I disconnect, and it's it's our little, maybe our agrarian roots, but you're connected back to nature and the machine's doing the work. So I'm just sort of along for the ride. And a zero turn, that's with the two handles. I mean, you could literally turn them on a dime. And that's why, that's a highly sought after device today is the zero turn mower because they're very fast and they're very easy to maneuver. So you can go around a tree really easily, backwards, forwards.
That's cool.
But technology's caught up.
When is the big show that you guys do, the big trade association show? I want to go play.
Yeah, you should come. We'll make sure. And we have 22 acres outside. So we're the 6th largest trade show in the country, 1.5 million square feet. It's big. We're the big trade show. And most trade shows, you can see stuff inside, right? And look at the equipment. We actually let you drive it, dig it.
No. I'm in.
So we have 22 acres outside. We represent UTVs too, utility vehicles. And so we have a track for those. We teach you how to fly a drone. So you can get a drone certificate from Indiana State University because a lot of landscapers use drones now. True story.
Wow.
More and more women are coming into the business, and which is a good thing. And so, and a lot of tree care. So all the labor problems, landscapers were looking for ways to add work to their business to keep their employees year round because they're having challenges relative to labor shortages. So that could be hardscape, trenching, tree work. Landscapers are evolving. And so ours is a hands-on setup. So I was talking to the head of Davy Tree and to get what kind of education, he goes, well, we need a tree. And I said, well, how big a tree? And let's call it a 60-footer. What we did at GI Plus Expo 2 years ago, we went out with Davy Tree, the big place where they manage. They took down a 70-foot tree. We loaded it on a flatbed.
Wow.
We drove it onto the floor of Freedom Hall, which is an adjacent arena. And we put it up in one of the world's largest tree stands, 26,000 pounds. And we had in-tree training with a real tree in Freedom Hall at our trade show. So it's real world stuff. It was very popular. We do it every year now. And we also do a dog adoption event. I can't let this get past me. Lucky, we have Lucky's Mutt Madness. So Lucky, the original Turf-Mutt, was a rescue dog. He served he was on a lot of TV. He went to a lot of television stations. He did a lot of interviews. And in his honor, because he was a rescue dog, we partner with the Kentucky Humane Society. We're in Louisville, Kentucky every year. And we have something called Lucky's Mutt Madness. and we have a national dog adoption event. And so we'll bring all these
Wow,
dogs
how
to Freedom
cool.
Hall, and we get a bunch of dogs adopted because a lot of our people drive in, and we connect them up.
Nice.
And so I'm very, very
That's
proud. And
nice.
that's how Mutt Mulligan came to the foundation. So she was adopted 2 years ago at
Cool.
Lucky's Mutt Madness, and God love her. And on her first day, she went to work. I took her from Freedom Hall, where she was adopted,
Good
and
name
took her
for
onto the
this, too.
floor of the show.
Oh, there she is. You will be the mascot. Well, listen, and I'm glad you've got
That's
a big
awesome.
tree, because all dogs want a tree. All male
Indeed.
dogs want their tree. They need a tree to
They
pee.
do.
You know, it's like, this
Yeah.
is my tree. But it is, that's like the coffee area. You know, it's like everyone gets together. The tree is the thing for dogs.
Yes.
Like, that's like their bulletin board. It's like, okay, well, so-and-so had a change of diet. No, you know what I mean?
Okay.
No, they have their little communications.
Hmm.
There is something about it, and they know, like, I could tell, like, going back to the Prescott place, Polo, he was a little rescued Mexican
He's so
street dog
cute.
from Mexico. And so a lot of training, sweetest little dog, but he wants his walk in the morning. And so
Yep.
we got up like 4 or 5 in the morning. As soon as the sun even started, we're out the door because of the heat. He knew, like, you could tell the way he acted and sniffed if it was wildlife or another dog that had crossed through.
Yeah.
Like, he knew what was going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
he-
they know.
He wanted to chase the coyote, and I
Yeah.
had to take him home because he was
Yeah,
like,
Yeah, that's
no.
not all. Yeah, that's not always smart. For a
No,
little
it's not.
dog.
But
No.
little dogs don't know they're little. They really
That's
don't.
true. That's so
don't.
true.
Yeah.
But I love this. So every year at this, what's the date for the expos, and where can people
Yeah.
go for this?
Sure. Well, it's not a public show. So
Oh, okay.
it's if you're a landscape contractor, a
Yeah.
hardscape contractor, dealer, if you're in the business, it's for you. So we get, thousands and thousands of people, 20,000 people that come in, and it's just part of our way of giving back. And so dogs are so critically important to our mental health and family. I'm a big dog rescue folks, as my family, a person is in my family. It's our way of helping.
Nice.
And we learn from them, and we use the dog as the platform. So we'll oftentimes have a dog related message, and woven into that is what we're trying to teach. Again, it's the dog battling bat heat freak, dust demon, Heat Island, Dr. Runoff. That's what makes it sticky. So the plain Jane education, Heat Island effect is math, right? Well, you can make it interesting. Just add a dog.
That's true.
And it works.
And so, go ahead.
I just say one more story. I was out this morning, right? Early, got the papers, like I typically do, then put the dogs in, and was sitting at the table, and I put nuts out. I usually get a bunch of birds in the morning. And this morning I had 2 different raptors. So I had a red-tailed hawk just shot in and sat on a chair about 20 feet from me.
Oh,
a
cool.
big guy.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
they just like, they see all this activity, what's going on. And if you're quiet and still, and it was just a few minutes later, then it's a bigger raptor, a big barred owl came and and they'll talk to you. They'll really get going with you.
Cool.
So he came in and they just say, what's happening here? A lot of activity, a lot of birds. And if you're quiet and you're not a threat, and I think they read the threat matrix pretty easily. That was just this morning. So
Isn't that awesome?
it is awesome, but
It's
I have
so
the
cool.
trees and
Yeah,
that support them.
that is awesome. When we stayed
That's
at Tiffany's
exciting.
Bed and Breakfast in Bismarck, Arkansas, which is outside Hot Springs. Do not
Oh,
blink.
that was
There, Bismarck is named after an
Mm.
old mine, and their mine is actually, they have 60 acres, and it's a forest with the mine in the back of their property. But he's a horticulturist, and he's got these gardens like you would not
He does
believe.
the red maple.
Yeah, a lot of
Oh,
maples. He's
how
addicted to
beautiful.
maples. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just wildflowers. So they have like native zones, and so for guests, people learn about this, and they're certified wildlife habitat. And we'd sit out on the deck because their bed and breakfast is this giant log cabin. I mean, like a lodge. It's really like a lodge. And you sit out there, and fireflies came up at night, and it's just, oh my, well, from going to Kentucky, right? And that's where we saw our first fireflies were in Kentucky. And so these fireflies were coming up, but it was this thing that was happening every night. There was this, at this specific time, there was movement down in like the bottom of the garden, and there's all trees. Well, we started filming, and it turned out it was a barred owl family And so now I had to put it up on the iNatural. I'm like, oh, we're into this. So we're asking everybody, what are these kind of, owls? And it was barred owl. And they were teaching their young, the little owlet, how to hunt. And so it was dipping down during the firefly season. And they're back again this year, the same
That's so
time,
cool.
doing the same thing. And you just get all goosebumpy,
Right.
because this
so
family
awesome.
knows it's a safe place. And that was it. Every single night we all had wine time and watched the owls.
Yeah.
Now you can have that in your backyard, like you're saying, like
And
you
it's
do.
generational. You'll see them grow up and come back year over year over year. Again, I get migrating. Again, for me, it's towhees in particular.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you'll see the same pair and then their
Yeah.
offspring, they come back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so every spring and fall, I get to see who comes in and stays. And it's a fantastic learning experience for kids, because
And
the
it's
only
such-
reason they're staying is you've given them what they need to rest and recharge.
I mean, it's a real compliment when they return.
It
if
is.
you did it right, and it's so much better than television. I mean, I
Yeah.
like TV, but that's for later when it's all dark out and you can't see.
And even if they're my little Carolina wrens, I get a couple different kinds of wrens
Wow.
that come in, and they're little tiny bird, but they're unbelievably noisy. It's a
Cool.
songbird, and they're very fast and they're very small, and so they're sometimes hard to see. But once you learn what to listen for and where they are, they're cavity dwellers. Again, it's another bird that signals where you are in the season. We're a proud partner of the Wildlife Habitat Council. So
Cool.
we work with them. Turf-Mutt-Foundation sponsors some of their video work, and we work with them closely to help them tell their stories as well. And for them, it's like major corporations and manufacturers. I mean, you can make a bird nest, or like you said, a roof garden. There's a factory is a great place for that. I've got a big manufacturer up in Wisconsin, the Aaron's company, and he makes his own honey now. So he put he heard the president of wildlife. She came to one of our meetings. He ended up putting some bee hives on the roof of the factory, and it worked.
Wow.
And they're making a bunch of honey now. And so now
Wow.
he's this huge outdoor wildlife area. He grows honey. This is a mower manufacturer. And so it doesn't
Wow.
take much. And so you don't have to have a factory, but you can do that at home too. So
Yeah.
we can all do our part.
Right.
I love this. I want to talk about the businesses, because it's something that, I say a lot. And businesses, if they, especially if they're like a high traffic place for people to see, the more companies, and I'm talking about the big corporations like Facebook and Google, have gardens.
Yeah.
Even if you're not highly trafficked, just you have this space. And especially if you're manufacturing, because there's chemicals in the air from that too. So by gardening and putting in, especially the right plants like you've been talking about, can really change the environment on a big scale. I have this thing, I want every bed and breakfast should be planting gardens, because all their guests, and that's really what you're doing if you're planting a garden in your house, you are becoming a bed and breakfast for the birds and the wildlife. And if everybody did this commercially, and all business owners, like restaurants, put in your herb garden. It's going to be, you're going to do better spices and flavors. If everybody did that, it's an example. It's another demonstration garden. Every school should have gardens. Like everybody has to have a garden.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm really pretty. Corporations need to do it, not just for the guest experience or the visitor experience, but to clean up all these industrial parks. It needs to go a little bit further than the typical, like, here we put a few daylilies because they're hardy. Just take up some of that place that you don't need and put those gardens in.
Well, and it's for your employee health as well. What we found, we do have a number of manufacturers like Mr. Aaron's. He has, a very large area of walking gardens and areas where an employee on break or at lunch can take some time and walk through a wildflower garden. We have another big manufacturer that's created outdoor space. Instead of just the employee cafeteria, they've created this big area, and it started because of COVID, but they created these big areas outside of places to eat that are in a garden area. And that's where everybody goes. And so even when it was safe to go inside, people like to eat outside. And so we're seeing that shift is creating those outdoor spaces, because it helps that employee rest, relax, recharge, disconnect a little bit on a break or on a meal shift. And we're seeing more of that, thankfully.
Yay.
We really, the more we plant, the more we're cleaning the air that we really are, if we keep going like we're going and tearing things up, this planet is really going to get a lot hotter and the air is going to get a lot filthier. So the surefire way of helping is to plant trees, plant flowers, and just keep planting and rip up the concrete. We don't need all that.
And it's simple photosynthesis. It doesn't matter what kind of plant you plant, it's going to take in carbon and produce oxygen. So at the rate we're knocking down the rainforest, we have got to plant more plants to make oxygen for us.
Yeah.
A typical quarter acre, a half acre lot at home is making enough oxygen for a family of 4.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
It is.
And it doesn't take much.
No.
Awesome.
It just takes a little thought.
Yeah. And it's fun. And it's
That's
fun.
all.
And you can go buy seed if you are, financially, go buy seeds, and propagate yourself. Like, talk about daylilies. You can make your own iris, variety. You can, get into that part too. There's just, and plant your own food. I think by doing this, that's going back to the topsoil, we're cleaning the soil. The soil is everything to this country. Yeah. We need to get our soil back to being healthy, but we can do it in our own backyards. When we lived out in the high desert outside Joshua Tree, nobody planted a garden there. In fact, when we went to buy the house, the guy was hacking up the wildflowers, the desert primrose. And he says, you need to do this, these things come up. And I'm like, if I'm going to take this out of here, stop hacking it, but we went in and, it's desert and everybody's like, oh, you can't grow anything. And we're like, oh, yes, we can. Watch this. And we did, and we learned how to modify our soil because this house was built, I think, in the 80s, and we were there in 2010. I can't remember. And the toxins from building the house were still in the garden. Yeah. And so we had to realize, okay, now we need to amend the soil, and we did it through manure.
Yeah, chicken
and compost.
Yeah.
And we had a garden. We became a test garden for knockout roses and some other plants. And we had a garden that everybody stopped and looked at. Families would come by with their kids to look and go, oh, you could. We grew flowers. We grew cantaloupe among the roses.
Garden ladies.
The garden ladies. But we had a thriving, you wouldn't believe that was the high desert. Pyracantha was our friend. The mockingbirds ate the berries, and then the flowers in the spring. It was just like, wow, this is so cool. You can do it. But we changed the soil of that property. And that's something, we don't live there now, but I'm proud to know that we fixed the soil as best we could.
But that's a lesson. But there's a lesson plan for you.
Yeah.
You did it. It just took a little knowledge and a little effort, and look at what you were able to achieve. And that's what we try to teach. Is it doesn't take a lot of time. You don't have to have a lot of land. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of time. You can tailor it for your needs. But that's benefit. You benefited the region. You benefited nature and the wildlife. That's the key. That's what we want to teach.
The property value went up.
Yes.
Because now we had a beautiful garden, and it wasn't hard to maintain at all. We had coyotes, that's true. I learned about I had the hoses I put under the dirt so that the coyotes wouldn't dig them up and eat them like they did.
But that's
I just put a bucket of water out.
Yeah.
And they came and they drank and they didn't do any damage. So I was like, why not?
See, you adapt. You knew how to. You defanged the coyotes because you knew what they needed or wanted. And that's the key is
just give it to them.
Symbiotic. We have to live and work together.
Yeah. I love it. And the one thing too about gardening and closing is you tend to walk the garden every day, every morning, every evening to see who's blooming, what's going on. It becomes this whole other
it's a lifestyle.
Life before sort of like, okay, this one's got a bud. I wonder when it's going to bloom. You start placing bets on when it's going to open. It's
right.
It's fun. It's super fun, and it's healthy. It's good. It makes everyone feel better. And I'm so glad you joined us. I didn't know all of this that was going on too. So we got a lot more to learn. And kudos to Aaron's, the lawnmower people you're talking about. I want to go see their bees when we get up to Wisconsin again. That's awesome.
Brilliant Wisconsin. You bet. He's proud of it. And it's he sells honey.
Good for him.
It's been a win-win.
That's awesome.
cool.
Everybody wants local honey too. Again, being,
Yeah.
you know, healthy for you.
Right,
So
very healthy.
everyone, oh my gosh, everyone get in your garden. Let me tell
Do
you
it
what to do.
now.
No, I'm just kidding. But we want to thank you for joining us. Go to turfmutt.com and get involved. All kinds of good information there. And we also want to thank our sponsor for today's segment, fine art nature photographer, Margot Carrera. She is all about gardens. In fact, she sent us on a story mission to visit and document gardens across America. And that includes graveyards, because they're also serious. The resting places for our people are also gardens, and some of the best gardens we've seen. So thank you, Margot. Everyone, you can see her work and her gifts. Go to CarreraFineArtGallery.com and keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. We air Monday through Friday. Thanks so much for joining us, Kris. It's been a real pleasure.